Heyo, sports fans. This is Bob Hanson coming to you from Bob's Tabletop Sports. Today we're going to be talking to you about History Maker Baseball and a custom approach I will be using to play History Maker Baseball for my next project called the 7-inning baseball system. And we'll be using the 2020 projection set to do that. So let's talk about this a little bit. So first of all, this isn't an original idea. This is something that I've done in the past or something close to it. My first iteration of this idea was my October Classics Baseball League, which is still in progress right now. I'm in the third season right now in the playoffs. The Final Four actually is going on right now on the tabletop behind me. And that's something that has been done for this, like I said, 3 seasons. It will continue into the future, maybe a little bit differently based on some of the results of what I'll be doing in this project. But we used only 6-inning games for that one. Worked really well. Completely static lineup. Had a lineup card, actually a full card for each team with it. With pitchers on it, 3 pitchers, and starting season 2, I added a relief pitcher as well to all of the cards. So overall, it was pretty exciting. Had some really awesome finishes with it. 6 innings did seem pretty satisfactory. Each game takes about 15 to 20 minutes to play. Very quick, very easy to play, very good system. Now, there are some drawbacks to this system. Fully static lineups, first of all, is the big one. You only get the 9 best hitters for each team, essentially. And you're going to get pitchers that are not going to ever really reach the end of their freshness. I did use 3 and 3, basically 3 fresh, 3 non-fresh. Didn't use any era-specific pitching fatigue for any of this. So you get through 6 innings, they're still semi-fresh, right? So the need for bringing in relief pitchers wasn't always there, okay? It only highlighted the 9 best hitters of the team. So people got left out sometimes, right? Maybe even sometimes like Hall of Famers might have gotten left out. Every team, National League or American League, and regardless of era, needed a designated hitter on their team. And a lot of these teams that were from before the national or before the designated hitter era in the American League, and then all National League teams needed to grab some extra player for designated hitter, and almost in every case, that designated hitter was the worst hitter on the team in the number 9 slot. Okay, so there's some weaknesses there. So what I'm doing now is proposing to going to what's called 7-inning baseball instead. And a lot of this came out of talks with another person, another gamer on the Play forums, Brian Martin. Something similar that he does in his system was basically having 7-inning games. And the way this would work is they're going to have 18-player rosters, 8 starting fielders, 3 starting pitchers, 2 relief pitchers, a backup starting pitcher, 1 generic outfielder as a backup, 1 generic infielder as a backup, 1 utility player as a backup, and 1 backup catcher as a backup, right? So there will be a possibility that these starters are not going to play every single game. We'll be talking about that in a little bit. But the utility players can play any position, and because of that, other than pitcher or catcher, I should say, but because of that, they're graded on their fielding 1 level, full level lower than what they normally are. So if they're neither iron or gold, they're full iron. Okay. The outfielder, generic infielders, which would normally I downgrade them a half a level. So basically, if they were neutral, then they'd be a semi-iron. Okay, but they can cover either all outfield positions or all infield positions based on the type of player they are. All right. 8-player batting lineup. So we're only going to have 8 players in the lineup. No designated hitter. There's no pitcher batting, so neither league gets an advantage on their cards. Okay. So setting up a National League team, we don't have to go searching for a designated hitter for them that's going to be the worst hitter on their team. Likewise, the American League teams don't have to have their pitcher batting, okay, and then lose out on a designated hitter. Now, that designated hitter, what do we do with them? Most of the time, I made them the utility player for the team. And that'll probably be the one player that they'll want to bring into the rotation every time that they have to do a backup, okay? So American League teams kind of got screwed a little bit on that, but not too badly, okay? 7 inning games. So that's 7 inning games, 2 extra innings if it's still tied after 7 innings, and then if it's still tied, the game is a tie. Okay, unless it's a playoff game, of course. But otherwise, the most I'll ever play is 9 innings. Now this is similar to my 6 inning baseball, where I only have 1 extra inning in there, and if it's still tied, it's tied. That's it. So they got 1 inning to rectify it. This one they get 2. Okay. It also made the score sheets really easy to make for this too. Speaking of score sheets, I'm not scoring this at all. I'm basically just doing a line score with hits, runs, and errors, and that's it. And then maybe some notes about the game. And I do the same thing for my October Classics baseball league. It works out really well. So I don't care how many hits that Christian Yelich gets or how many home runs he gets or whatever like that. All I care is that he performs well in a game or whatever, or whatever contribution he makes to that team. That's about it. So there's that. 3-pitcher rotation. Like I said, there's 3 starting pitchers, so there's going to be a 3-pitcher rotation. All of these games are going to be played in 3-game series. So the 3-game series is perfect because they get to see all 3 of their pitchers. Now, there is a possibility that one of those starting pitchers won't be able to pitch during that series. And you'll see a little bit how that would happen. But if that does happen, there is that backup starter. Okay. There are 2 relievers, and they can each pitch for a total of 4 innings in a 3-game series. And a backup starter can also pitch in relief for 2, still start a game, or they can also pitch for 4 as well. All right. So you can use your guys however you want to use them. All right. Freshness rules do apply as far as, if you keep them in for more than 1 inning. Specifically for the terse pitchers, they are maintained in this set, as you'll see. Okay. All right. So, pregame activities. So every game we're going to have some pregame activities that are going to occur before the game starts. The first one we're going to do is we're going to see if the actual lineup is going to be playing. So what I wanted to do is have a lineup that I could just throw out there right away and then be able to play with that lineup and know that those starters are, pretty much going to be the starters for most games. Okay. But I also made alternate lineups for each team with a different catcher. So that'll cover probably about, let's say about 85% of the games. Okay. So basically what's going to happen is before the game starts, you're going to roll a decider die. Okay. If the decider die is true, you are not going to be using the standard lineup for the game. Okay. You're going to have one replacement or maybe 2 replacements. Okay. You're going to roll the decider die again. If the decider die is true, then in that case, the catcher is going to be replaced. So this accounts for the fact that catchers are going to be rotated out more often than pretty much a lot of other players. There's not going to be any platooning or anything in this. Basically, though, the catchers never play a full season usually. They usually kind of switch off with another catcher. Usually your more strong catcher is going to play the majority of the games, while the other one will play a good chunk. Okay. So in this situation, about 1 out of every 4 games, your catcher is going to be played by our catcher position is going to be played by your backup catcher. And that's why I said there'll be lineups for both catchers essentially on the lineup cards that I created for this. Okay. If the decider die comes up as false on that, instead you're going to roll 2d6 and then you're going to consult a chart to see who's being swapped out. On that chart, a 7 is always going to be your starting pitcher. So, and that's where the backup pitcher comes in. Okay. Um, and then after all of that, you're going to roll the decided die again. And if it comes up true again that second time, um, then a second player of the game is also going to be replaced. Now, if that same player comes up again, then you just only replace the one, and then you're done. But note that that second decider die roll only happens if the first one was true. Okay, so that's how that works. All right. The other thing you're going to do is you're going to determine harmony or dissonance for the game. So in this game, we're only going to be doing semi-harmony or semi-dissonance, nothing else. Okay. Base is always going to be 1 to 3 on a D6 roll. Semi-harmony if 1 to 3. 4 to 6 is going to be distance. Now, there's going to be modifiers to this. If they won their last game, that range is going to be 1 to 4 instead for semi-harmony. And if they lost their previous game, the range is going to be 1 to 2. They'll never be full harmony. They'll never be full dissonance. Okay. There are no game day effects. Game day effects are going to make it a lot more difficult for me to be able to do these games in a quick manner. All right. So the way that they're done is they come through other things like this harmony and dissonance, the random hot and cold, and then manager cards, which we'll be talking about in a little bit. Injuries, stuff like that, aren't going to occur in this league. That's kind of being abstracted by this player replacement system that I outlined before. And to be honest, this is going to be a 30-game project for each team. So it's not going to be anything huge. Okay. D10 for random hot and cold player. That's how we're doing it. Okay. That's how we do it in my October Classics leagues. It's worked out pretty well for the most part. Because again, I'm not scoring these games, so I don't know how a player did the previous game. I don't really care. Okay. So I'm just going to assign it randomly, and you're going to get a random hot and cold player. I also allow pitchers to be hot or cold. Kind of again replaces these game day effects type thing. So it's possible that a pitcher might be hot for an entire game or cold for an entire game. That's possible. Okay. Something that doesn't normally happen in the normal hot and cold player determination in History Maker Baseball, but this is a special rule. It's a house rule. Okay. If a 0 comes up, then no player is selected for that. Also, if the same player is selected for hot and cold, then no player is hot and cold for that team for that game. Again, it's one of those game day effect things that could happen, right? Then we're going to assign manager cards to each team. They're not really manager cards. We'll talk about what these are in a minute. They're special type of perks that each team gets for a game. Each team is going to get one of these by default, and then the home team is going to get an extra one by default. And then if the team won their previous game, they're going to get an extra card as well. Okay, so it's possible two teams coming in that won their previous game, they're both going to get that extra card, right? All right, so what I call this is simplified manager cards, right? So they're not really cards, they're just benefits. I write them onto this score sheet for each team and just cross them off when they use them. It's just a perk, and there's only 4 of them. So it makes it really easy to know what they do. And they're kind of a conglomeration of the basic manager cards that are in History Maker Baseball. So like the chemistry card kind of combines the two chemistry type cards in History Maker Baseball, right? So one of them in History Maker Baseball is used to raise the chemistry level before a chemistry check is made, right? The other one is used to force that chemistry check on a team. Well, this card can do either one, okay? You can use it for either one, and you consume that ability at that point. A now card is same thing, but just for the baseball now check and raising a hot and cold level of a player. Experience card, experience check, either or. Either going to raise the experience level or you're going to force an experience check. The interesting one is the player stat card. This kind of makes this a little arcadey a little bit because it could change the game a little bit. And this is one that teams like to get a lot in the October Baseball League that I've been doing, October Classics League. But the player stat card. So this can either work the way that it works already, where it's going to add or remove a full stat from a player before a roll, which is kind of the boring way. No team has used it this way since I started instituting this rule. But the other way you can use it is it can change the decider die after a roll. Okay. So for example, let's say they roll on a chart and the check is player is a home run king, and you have a semi home run king player, and you have a decider die came up as false, and you want to change it to true. Well, that you could use a stat card to do that. Okay. So it's very powerful, and like I said, it makes it kind of arcadey a little bit, but it makes it fun too. It actually makes for some really interesting turns in games. Okay. Um, Note here, this is very important. A team can only use it when the check affects their player. Okay. So for example, let's say we had a pitcher check, and the batting team doesn't like that pitching check. Okay. So say that it checks for an ace pitcher. The pitcher is a semi-ace pitcher. Decider die came up as true. The batting team cannot use a stat card to change that decider die for that pitching check because it's not their player. Okay, if it came down to the batting check, then they could. All right. So basically, they roll a d6 for each card they get. On a 1, they're going to get a chemistry card. 2, they're going to get a now card. 3, they're going to get an experience card. And a 4 to 5, they're going to get a player stat card. 6, they're going to get to choose one of these 4 cards, whatever they want. And it's important to note that this is done after the team harmony is selected and after the hot and cold players have been selected. This is really important because say you have a cold pitcher for the game, you might want to stack up on some now cards if you can, if you have a choice. Okay. Or let's say your team has, or one team has dissonance, one team has harmony. That dissonant team may want to select instead a chemistry so that they can change their chemistry for at least one roll. Okay. All right. So the project I'm going to be doing is for the 2020 set, the projection set done by Travis Jansen. Travis Jansen did a really awesome 2020 projection set for Major League Baseball, and worked with Keith Avalone to make that available to everybody. And Keith Avalone, through his generosity, allowed that to be on their storefront and offered to everybody for free during this pandemic, making sure that people have something to do when they're at home. Okay. So I took that set and I made basically my own set off of that, using those stats and what have you. Made my own card set off of it. Made some minor changes to those cards. Specifically, the biggest change would be the fact that the pitching cards don't have any batting stats on them because they're never going to bat. Okay. And then the other changes again were the utility players having downgraded their fielding by 1 full value, and the outfielders and infield, the generic outfielder, generic infielder positions having those downgraded by 1 half as well. Okay. But anyways, there's going to be 4 divisions of 4 teams. So I only took the top 8 teams from the National League from the 2019 season and the 8 best teams of the American League from the 2019 season and put them into this. Okay. Each team is going to play each team in their division, 1 3-game series at home and 1 3-game series away. And then they're going to play the teams in the other division of their league, 1 series alternating home and away. So basically 2 home series, 2 away series. And you get a total of 30 games, 10 series. Okay, that's it. That's the whole thing. Division winners are going to advance to a 4-team playoff. First round is best of 5. Championship is going to be best of 7. Simple. Okay. That's it. So that's the whole Megillah right there for how that's going to work out. These are the teams, and there's a problem on this slide because I said Division B is the last one. It's supposed to be Division D. But anyways, basically tried to split them up East and West, American League, National League. So the real interesting one was the National League, trying to split that one up because I had 3 Central Division teams in there. And so I had to move one basically somewhere else. To get it to work out. The East had 3 as well. West only had 2. And so I ended up moving the Brewers over to Division A, and then the Cubs and the Cardinals went to Division B. And the reason I made the decision that way is the Cubs and the Cardinals are a bigger rivalry. Brewer fans like to think that they're the Cubs' big rival, but they're not. Um, the Cubs and the Cardinals have been rivals, since time immemorial, right? So that rivalry's been going on for a long, long time. But anyways, the American League worked out really easily. It was really easy to put the Indians into the East, put the Twins into the West, and the Rangers and the Astros into the West as well. Worked out really, really easily. Um, so that's how it's going to be laid out. All right. So again, a few special thanks here. I just want to again reiterate my thanks to Brian Martin, because a lot of the inspiration for this came from him and his ideas of doing 7-inning baseball. He's been doing this already. This is something that him and I talked about at length through both voice chat and then also through a few emails going back and forth between us and instant messages and what have you. And me asking him questions about how he does things. I really like how he does his, and so a lot of what he's doing is in place here. The idea of the 8-player batting lineup, that's his. 7-inning stretching my 6-inning game to a 7-inning game, that's his idea. Okay, I liked the idea. I already had the 6-inning idea already before talking to him. But stretching out to 7 started to make more sense. Allowing for 2 innings of extra innings and then a tie really made sense. And these are things that he's already doing. So just adding kind of my other wrinkles that I've been using in my October Classics kind of makes this a little bit more mine at this point. But a lot of this comes from him. And I really can't talk about this without talking about him and his originating that idea. Okay, Travis Jansen, again, a big shout out to him, and also Keith Avalone too, for putting those cards out there for everybody to use. Thanks to both you guys for making this happen. This is a really exciting change. So with that, we're going to go take a look at these cards and see what they look like. So here we go. This is what the cards look like. I made a special board for this even. So we got this special board here that I printed out for an 8-player lineup with the pitchers here and then a space for the umpires as well. But you can kind of see how this works out. And I apologize for the video quality. The video or the webcam I have is crap. I need to get a new one. But anyways, this kind of gives you an idea. And the reason I have it laid out like this is it's really easy to not have to score the game, because I know who the base runners are if I spread this out. So the way this would work, I got like my 2 pawns here for the current batter for each side. And let's say Sogard gets up and he bats and he gets an out. I'd put an out marker on there, and I know that there's been 1 out, and I know who got it too. Okay. Let's say Kane comes up, he gets a hit, he goes on first base. So now I know that Kane is on first base. So now let's say he steals second. Okay, cool. And then Yelich comes up. Yelich hits a single, moves him to third. Okay. Then Hira comes up, he strikes out. So you get the idea. And then let's say that Smoke strikes out as well, and that will end the inning. We just pull the things off of here, and we go down to the other side. Right? Very simple, very easy to use. Again, this is something similar to what I've been using with the 6-inning baseball with the October Classics. Let me just pull out one of these real quick so you guys can see what one of these cards looks like for the 6-inning baseball. So this is kind of what I was talking about, where I have a team sheet, and I've been using these markers here on these team sheets. It works out really well. Makes it very simple, very fast to do. We have a full lineup here on the card, so it's just a matter of pulling these cards out. So this right here is kind of an expansion on this whole idea, allowing for adding some extra players in the lineup and stuff like that, and what have you. Also, speaking of lineups, you can see here, I got these lineups. So the first lineup is with using Navarez as the catcher, right? The other one uses Pena as the catcher, so Pena's the backup catcher. So now I have the two most commonly used lineups on this card here. I don't have to figure out lineups; I just put the cards out. Okay, very simple, very easy to do. All right, um, and then I have umpires here. I have 8 crews, and they just get rotated for each game. And um, these are from 2018 card set. I didn't want to print out the ones that Travis made for this season. I just like these were laying around. Use these, right? My 20 or my I'm sorry, my October Classics League, I use the Century League umpires, which are awesome because they have really cool names and stuff. But I thought for this one I'd use some more conventional umpires. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's a good introduction to how this is going to work out so that if you are looking at my game reports throughout the season, you'll kind of see how this is played out. And seeing that this fits on the camera really nicely, I may play out a few games for you here live or maybe recorded and then just put them up on YouTube for you guys to watch so you can kind of see how this works out in a full game situation. So thank you everybody for watching, and I hope you all have a great day. And happy Mother's Day to any mothers that might be watching this.